Is TaylorMade changing the game for fitting? We're going to talk about it right now because this is an interesting idea that they've come up with. What's going on, everybody? Scott Hogan coming at you. We're here, we're in the fitting corner. We are talking about something that's pretty interesting in my opinion, because honestly I've never heard it, or I think it's something that I intuitively kind of knew but didn't really have some science behind it, but now we are getting that from TaylorMade. So we're going to talk about these new REAX shafts here and what they are kind of going with, and how they're, in my opinion, trying to change a little bit or shift a little bit of the thinking about getting fit for a golf shaft. Now, before we do that, as always, we could talk about theory all you want, but the number one way that you're going to get better or get a proper fit is to actually get fit. So if you want to do that, make sure you come check out the Missile Performance Center down in the description below and schedule your fitting, because all the new toys, they are coming out right now. All right, guys. So if you saw our video introducing the new TaylorMade QI 4D, we talked about the 4D stands basically for the 4 pillars of what TaylorMade thinks makes a high-performing golf club. Now, the first one was always going to be the face. What does the face look like and how is it constructed? The second one was going to be the shaft. The third is going to be the fit. And then the fourth would be the club head shape. And that would be the different models. Now, we didn't talk a ton about the shafts or the fitting process because I thought that was interesting enough to warrant an own video. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, TaylorMade, you're going to see a ton of this. TaylorMade has come up with a new shaft, and they did this with Mitsubishi, which, if you're familiar, they're probably most known for like the Tensai line of shafts, which I do think is a great golf shaft, but they went ahead and worked with them to come up with their own in-house line of golf shafts. It's an interesting business move because as you're thinking about economically what's going on, bringing things from overseas is starting to get a little bit pricey. And if you can design something in-house, you can actually maybe keep some of those costs down, and hopefully that's going to get translated over to the consumer. Now, the other thing that's interesting to me is that if you're designing and building shafts in-house or more locally, or you have more control over the process, then you can actually do some interesting things. And as we talked about in the last video, where we're at with driver heads is pretty maxed out because of what they can do as far as USGA rules, but they can work on things that help the player get faster. And I think the golf shaft is something that also can be really, really looked at to make you a better ball striker or a better driver of the golf ball. So let's talk about what these REAX shafts are. You're going to see 3 models to it. You're going to see very similar, if you're familiar with the Ventus line of shafts, you're going to have a red shaft, you're going to have a blue shaft, and you're going to have a white. You might hear it sometimes cross interchanged with the term black. So white or black shaft is depending on what you want to call it, but you have those 3 color of golf shafts. That's not something that's very new to the shaft industry. What I think is new is how TaylorMade is marketing these golf shafts. You have on these shafts, what you would see is a rate of change, all right? And this is where TaylorMade is changing the thinking about what the golf shaft is. We have on here, you're gonna see for the red shaft, we have an HR with a little delta symbol, so high rate of change. On the blue shaft, you're going to see a medium rate of change. And on the white shaft, you're gonna see a low rate of change. Now, what are they saying that these shafts are gonna be good for? Well, what they're basically saying is the golf shaft is what helps you get the club face square. So if you're having a major directional issue, hey, I'm hitting it pretty solid, I'm kind of getting the numbers I want, but I'm seeing this ball going all over the place, then the golf shaft is where you're going to look. What they're referring to is the rate of closure that the golf club is getting. Some people are going to have a high rate of closure or a high rate of change. Thus, that's where they would say, hey, I need to go into the red shaft or HR with the delta sign. Some people are going to have a low rate of change. That is where you would go into the white shaft, and then some people will fall into the middle. Now, how do you measure what is your rate of change? Well, they've worked with Foresight. Foresight actually has a closure rate number on the device. You can actually look at it on a quad and see what your closure rate is. If you do not have a quad, there are actually ways they've come up with via video to determine what type of closure rate you have. So what we're talking about is when you're lining up the golf shaft at impact. If you're somebody that lines up the golf shaft and you have a straight line between your lead arm and the shaft, pretty much at impact, then you are going to be somebody that falls into a high rate of change. Now, if you're somebody that lines it up at your lead leg, you're going to be somebody that's a medium rate of change. And if you're lining it up after that, you're going to be a low rate of change. So I put a couple of examples up there so you can see what that would look like. Now, why does that matter? Well, based on when you're releasing the club, you need that shaft to kick at different points. So this is a new idea. It's not super new in the sense that, hey, we need to get the ball to launch, we need to get the shaft to kick at certain points, but I think most of the time we've thought about it in the terms of spin rate and launch angle. How do we get the ball to launch, and how do we get that spin under control? What TaylorMade is going with is, hey, we need to actually get this ball under control from how it is it's squaring up, and can we consistently get that to happen? Now, I thought this was interesting because I fit into what I would call a low rate of change. I'm not obviously in one of these shafts since they are brand new, but I would call it a low rate of change shaft. I always thought that I needed that because I have a high spin rate. However, my closure rate on quad is high. Now, to be fair, there is no metric of like, hey, this defines you as a low rate of change. This defines you a mid rate of change. This defines you as a high rate of change. So that is a little bit, hey, this is kind of an ambiguous number. We're just throwing something out there. But when I saw myself compared to other people's numbers, I was definitely high. I was above 3,000 for my rate of change. So that would put me into the red shaft, which is honestly pretty much on the opposite end of the spectrum. Now, having tried it and hit it, felt weird because I'm not used to it, but it did feel a little bit easier. I did see some good, dispersion even on mishits. I felt like, the ball wasn't getting out of control, which was nice, but it is something that if I was to make the change, it would take a lot of getting used to. That's what they're looking at with these shafts, and you're going to see these shafts all over when they are bringing them up. But the question I have is, for you out there, if you were to take a look at your swing on video and compare it to what golf shaft you have, would you say that you are matched in? Especially for those of you that got fit, do you match into what this is, what they're saying? Do you have that high rate of closure and you match into a shaft that goes with that? Or if you have a low rate, do you match into that? So that's the question that I have that we just haven't seen enough of yet from fitting. Well, obviously this is brand new. We are just getting into the fitting season with it. I'm interested to see where we go with this and seeing people's golf swings to determine what they need to do best. So with that said, that's where we are at with the two other pillars that we didn't talk about with the driver head. If you want to check more about the specs of the driver, that link to the video is down below. And as always, if you have any comments, please leave that comment down below because I'm interested to know where are you at and what you are playing. Because honestly, we're trying to verify whether this is something that is really going to work for people, because I find it very interesting. I find it fascinating, but as always, we're not just going to take it for word. We're going to put it to test and see if it's actually what we're saying. Please let me know if you have any questions. If you're not a subscriber already, please click that subscribe button down below. And as always, we will see you in the next one. Peace.